This is What If Fatima Had a Podcast. Okay, we are now on our fourth episode of What If Fatima Had a Podcast. But first of all, we would like to return to know how's everyone? How's everyone doing? How's your love life? How's your social life? How's your mental health? And now that we are nearing the preliminary examinations, I wanted to know what preparations are you doing right now? Ate Johanni.
For me, I like to read my textbooks. There are practice questions there, and oftentimes they do appear in our examinations. That's why I want all of you guys to open your textbooks and read the practice questions.
All right. As for me, I'm having a hard time right now to review the minor subjects um, um, the online subjects we are not required to take quizzes, but in major subjects we are forced to review because we need to answer the quizzes prepared by our teachers in face to face. And now that we mentioned reading, I know that our topic for today will be your interest at Johanni. So, can you share some sentiments about your reading habits as your hobby?
Oh yeah, I like to read as my hobby. However, I find it quite hard to read these days because there is increase in textbooks and novels. That's why I find it very much easy to get into the pirated means of reading, the digitalized novels, the PDFs. I mean, I know that's quite unethical, but reading books of that for entertainment are not my priority, and I'd rather drink Starbucks. Okay, so I don't buy anymore.
Okay. So, that is just a quick preview of our topic for today. But and also we have a twist for our podcast. We are now required to speak only in English, and I know that our guests will be challenged about it. And to start our podcast, let us first introduce ourselves. I am TJ Ciriaco.
And I'm Johanni Barcelona.
And this is What If Fatima Had a Podcast. Okay, we're now back in What If Fatima Had a Podcast. And let's introduce our guests for today. We have our schoolmates from Our Lady of Fatima Cabanatuan, and they're all a MEDTECH students. We have here April, Jailyn, Nichole, and Edelyn. Can you guys open your mic?
Hi guys!
Hi guys!
Hello!
Hello!
Okay, so again, you are only required to speak in English. So, are you guys prepared for this?
Oh my god!
It's so hard.
Are you guys prepared for this?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. How about you, Nichole, the choker girl? We can't hear you, Nichole. Can you
The choker impeding your speech.
yeah.
What?
Can you repeat your answer?
We
Are you
can hear
prepared for
Nicole.
this?
My family. Oh my god.
Is that
You can Nicole
Is that Janine Padonan?
I'm not prepared.
Okay.
That's why I'm wearing choker. I'm not prepared.
Okay. How about you, Edeline? You prepared?
No, I'm not also prepared.
Okay. Now that we mentioned earlier that our topic for today will be critical reading and offline reading, let's now start to discuss. So I hope that to everyone who are listening our podcast, will get will learn about our topic for today. So let us first define what is critical reading and traditional reading. And first, let us now focus first on critical reading. And for me, as for my opinion, critical reading is beyond reading the whole text. It is beyond because we are required to see how credible it is, how reliable the text we are reading is, and if the text we are reading is factual. How about you guys?
I actually agree with you. You know, critical reading is a valuable skill that we should have. It is not just about absorbing the information, like passively absorbing the information we are reading, but we should interpret or evaluate the content of the material that we're reading. It's all about going deep to uncover the hidden meaning, assumption or biases of the author. You know, we want to know what the author is trying to say about this information. Like, you know, we want to ask or we want to evaluate the whole material of what's the author, like, you know, perspective, or where the author is coming from. That's it.
Okay. How about you, Ate Johanni?
Critical reading allows us students to be able to apply what we read, not only content but also use the content beyond what is intended.
Okay.
And for others,
Yeah, for others, how about you guys? Nicole?
For me, critical reading is not just reading the text, but also analyzing and evaluating the the hidden meaning of the text.
Okay, right. Okay, let's now move on in defining traditional reading. So, can you guys define what is traditional reading, April?
So for me, I think critical reading is
Wait,
is when
traditional reading.
okay, traditional reading. So with the use of printed materials such as books, magazines, and many more. So without the use of internet and digital gadgets.
Yeah. Okay, how about you, Edeline? Do you read traditional? Do you read traditionally, or you only use laptops, gadgets, or iPad?
These days, I only use my gadgets when I'm reading text. When exams are coming, quizzes are coming, I only use gadgets while eating because it helps me to be productive while using my notes while I'm using my iPad, because these days using iPads or tablets gadgets, I can write notes on there, and based on my experience it is very helpful.
Yeah, but do you experience reading traditionally, like in books, during your high school days?
No, because in high school there is so many books that I'm carrying, and it is heavy to carry books that is heavy in school, so it is inconvenient for me.
Okay, okay, that's right. So we have different experiences in reading traditionally. Some might say that we often read books during our high school because we are required to carry books, right? It is a requirement in our school, but now we are going very tech. Yeah, April, what's your sentiment?
Can I share something?
Yes.
So ever since when I was in elementary, I always do traditional reading. I always make some notes in my notebook. And now that I'm in college, I prefer to read my trances or printed trances, so that I think it's very helpful because I always got a high scores.
Okay, that's good. Now that we have a background on both subjects, how do you guys incorporate critical reading and offline reading? Ate Johanni, how do you incorporate critical reading and offline reading?
Oh, I like to make diagrams and review uh, so that I'm be able to evaluate if I learned anything. Otherwise, I'll just be reading and reading, and I won't be able to retain anything, or I won't be able to know if I'm actually learning. And how about you?
Okay.
How about you, TJ?
Um, as for me, critical reading and offline reading is very important because first of all, I would like to know if the medium I am reading is credible, if it is really it is if it is re- if the texts are really from our prof or the resources we use in medtex, so it is factual, and I will yeah, if it is factual, how quickly. How about you, Jailyn?
Well, for me, when I'm searching for research, especially now that we have a research paper, the first thing that I'll do is to check the author's background because I need to know if it's really reliable or credible.
Okay.
That's
How about you, Nicole?
Same thoughts with
Yeah.
Jailyn.
Okay. So next questions. Do you guys find traditional reading ethical nowadays? Or in the past, do you find it ethical? Who wants to share her sentiments? Okay, Edelyn.
Well, for me, whether it's traditional or digital, it doesn't depend on how the medium itself, but rather on how we engage with the consumed content. The ethics of reading are centered around the factors such as respecting intellectual property rights and also avoiding plagiarism and ensuring responsible sharing of knowledge. These ethical considerations are applicable regardless of where one engages in traditional reading with physical books or digital reading. Both forms of reading offer their own advantages and challenges, but the basis for ethical reading is consistent across both mediums.
Okay. How's, how about everyone? Ate Johanni.
Yes, as for me, I find traditional reading to be the most ethical form of reading. Mainly because it is harder to plagiarize, and you often find textbooks more consistent with the intellectual with respecting the intellectual property rights in comparison to digital reading, which is very easy to plagiarize. And matter of fact, because it can be updated by everyone or in a certain sense, you can no longer deem them credible all the time.
Okay. Now that we are getting some sentiments about traditional and digital reading, I think it is a good way now to differentiate both subject matter. So who would like to share her sentiments about the two? Can you guys differentiate it?
So
Okay, so there's fireworks.
I'm so sorry, guys. So, so for me, in my opinion, it's basically traditional reading is by using printed materials, like I've said earlier, and while the online critical reading is using gadgets or internet and other advanced technologies. And that's it.
Okay. And I also think that nowadays digital reading is more efficient for some. It is more efficient. It's more convenient because all the readings are now in one place, like in your laptops, in your iPad, right? But I am still a fan of the traditional reading because I also print trances and I use it if I need to review something. How Ate Johanni.
For me, I although I do like both, when it comes to academic texts, especially for us in the healthcare field, we should we are leaning more towards digital reading because no matter how true or factual a text is, if it's obsolete, then it means nothing. And since digital reading allows the author to easily update his or her work, then it's more beneficial for us.
Yeah. Also in digital reading. Okay, April.
I just want to add, just like what Ate Johanni said earlier, that um, books nowadays are so expensive. So
Yeah.
with the use of internet, we can access to different varieties of books online. And also, if if I'm reading traditional with the use of printed materials, I don't need to worry about my internet connections or my device error.
Okay, so we're now saying that in traditional reading we have some challenges that we encounter. Okay.
In online,
Yeah.
we encounter many challenges.
Okay. But also in traditional reading, we also encounter some challenges. Like for me, um, when I am not satisfied about the information I encountered in traditional or in printed materials, I still need to search it on Google. Unlike in reading in online, there are links that, for example, there are words that are linked to some websites, so you can check it also. So that is one of the problem I encounter in traditional reading. How about you, Jailyn?
Well, for me, the problems that I encounter with the traditional book is that it's very time consuming. For example, when I want to know the definition of this word, I can just search it up online, like on Google. But in traditional books, it's really time consuming to find the definition of the word. So I prefer online.
So you guys prefer online. How about you,
Yes.
Nicole? Do you encounter some challenges as you read traditionally or offline?
Just like what Jailyn said, in traditional reading, you need to really put some effort to find the meaning of the unfamiliar words you encountered, and 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 it's really time consuming.
Yes. So now that you guys shared your problems in reading offline, how do you guys overcome those challenges you encountered? Yes, Edeline.
For me, I can give some common challenges that people face when reading offline, and it is limited access to resources and distraction. And I will give some way to overcome these challenges. Well, on limited access to resources, many offline readers may have limited access to a wide range of books and literature. To overcome this, individual can consider joining local libraries, exchanging books with friends or neighbors, or participating in book sharing communities. While in distractions, reading offline at home or in public places, it can it can be prone to distractions from technology, noises, or other people. Find a quiet and comfortable reading spot where distractions are minimized. Setting specific reading times and creating a reading routine can also help maintain focus.
Okay, it was a nice advice from Edelyn. Um, hmm,
For me, I think I want people to familiarize with themselves the Dewey Decimal Systems and the menu, the available resources in the books itself. So, for example, like they mentioned before, that there are terms that they find it hard to understand. They're actually present in the book, the bibliography section, and that they are presented in alphabetical order so that they may be easier to find for us.
nice. So that's traditional reading for us, and now I think we should now focus on critical reading. What are your strategies for improving critical reading skills when reading offline?
So for me, I mentioned earlier that I use printed materials. So I use highlighters with different colors to annotate different parts of the text. I also do note taking and also writing the text in my own words for me to ensure that I understand the text properly.
How about others?
Like what April said, I also use highlighters to annotate important the important details on my review or on my chances, but not in printed because it is really expensive nowadays. So I prefer using my phone because there's an app where you can do notes or highlights your chances.
Oh, as for me, I think the best way to to read critically is to ask someone who specializes in the topic. For example, when I go to my doctor, if there are certain things I'm not able to understand in relation to healthcare, I just ask him. And because I'm paying him for the duration of my stay in his office, I'm able to use his time effectively and get sometimes free advice from him. And in side note, how do you guys see the future of traditional reading now? Because then, traditional reading wasn't even thought of like the way we do see it now. For example, we cannot. There were times that they cannot even fathom the thought that there will be printed text, right? They used to have scribes that would write everything, but now we can print it. So, how do you see the future of traditional reading now or in the future?
I think um for me for the future generations, I think the digital reading for them would be um would be all about reading in digitally, because it is now the trend now that we used to it is now the trend now that the technology is advancing. So I think for them, they will thought that um traditional reading is reading in iPads and laptops, and I'm also afraid that the future generations will forget about the printed books.
How about you, Edelyn? What nuances regarding the issue of traditional reading going to be obsolete in the future?
Student nowadays they uses iPads, they uses gadgets, and for me, it's really helpful. But thinking that the traditional reading is being forgotten, it is very, what you call that, that it is more effective than traditional reading. Using gadgets nowadays is helpful for students because, like what others said, um, the words that you can search are the words that are you can search it online easily. And while tradition, it is time consuming.
I think Nicole wanted to share some sentiments about this.
I also want to share something. Now that we are living in a modern world, we don't seem to be considering the need to purchase physical books in order to access knowledge because our gadgets and tablets, smartphones can store hundreds of that books and contents that we require. And today, that reading is no longer confined in printed books. We can tell that the future of the books is in digital because I used to see students carrying books, papers, and pen, but now I notice that we are now holding tablets and smartphones. But I believe that those physical books will continue to be valued by the next generation as relevant, fascinating, and one of the most credible source.
In relation to that, how can we promote literacy and a love for reading in younger generations in a world that is becoming increasingly digital? But as for me, my nuances for that is that I don't think the future generation would actually find physical books obsolete because in the advent of younger generations, specifically those who are still very young, maybe 1 to 3 years old, their parents won't give them phones, will give them gadgets, and there are still new and exciting books for them to enjoy, such as puzzle books, or coloring books. I think these are ways for younger generations to still enjoy books as they transition from picture books to textbooks. And how it's for you guys?
For me, to promote literacy to our future generations is that with the help of educational institution, by requiring books on their studies, and by still promoting it on their classrooms. And I still believe that um, those educational institutions and also our parents um, should advise their children to still read traditionally. Yeah.
I do agree with you, TJ, because it is really in the hands of our educators and parents to encourage the young to pursue having critical reading skills or love for reading in general. And how it's for you, Jailyn? What's your nuances regarding the topic?
Well, for me, in today's digital age, it's really challenging to compare the traditional books to internet and social media. Since kids nowadays love to to play games, like online games, instead of reading books. So one thing that the parents need to do is to set a time for their child to read a book, at least 1 or 2 hours each day. And also, they need to become a role model to their child, because they don't usually follow the instruction, but they imitate what they see, like what they see to their what they see to their parents.
So I agree with you, Jailyn. When I was a kid, my parents didn't show or promote literacy to me. So now I admit that I don't I don't think that I am good enough in critical reading. So it's quite challenging for me now to improve my critical reading skills.
So our parents have a big part in promoting literacy to us, and it's a good idea that parents or our teachers should be a role model because literacy is a requirement as our 21st century skills, right?
I have to agree that children really do mirror their parents. And in advent to that, I think we should adapt to these changes rather than suppress our children from reading digital means of books. We should expect that they will be consuming most of their knowledge in this digital age digitally. In essence, I believe that there should be maybe games that would promote literacy for these young children, and let's make or limit their ability to search the internet maybe to only those that will be able to promote literacy, be more knowledgeable, so that they won't be exposed to any explicit content that they should not be even be able to access. And in relation to that, how can critical reading skills be tied to their areas of life, such as work, personal relationships? Like as medtechs, how is important to be critical or be literate in critical reading?
Um, for us medtechs, I think critical reading should be applied in the future when we are working because accuracy should be our first priority. So when we critically read, I think it will be helpful for us to release accurate results on our patients because reading is not just about reading in books, but it is also about reading in different ways.
For me, I'd like to go before Edelyn. I think we'll be able to apply these critical reading skills in medical technology because we'll be able to communicate effectively the processes we'll have to do. And oh, that we have to do. Okay, for April, how about you, April? In personal relationships, how do you think critical reading skills would be important for you?
So when it comes to my personal relationships, by carefully reading and analyzing the body languages and gestures that my friends, families, or individuals around me, what they are really saying or what they are really feeling. This can help me to communicate more effectively and build a stronger relationships with them.
Nichole, do you think it is important for you as a future medical technologist to have critical reading skills?
As it is really important to develop to think critically as a future medical technologist, since one of our duty and responsibility is to provide records based on our analysis and interpretation of the data. As such, you should develop critical thinking skills, and we should dig deeper to consider alternative theories and look past the obvious in what is being spoken and seen.
Yes, I have to agree. That's very important to have critical reading, especially when we're interpreting the data. For example, we can't have a very low hematocrit level while our hemoglobin levels are rising. Is that correct? Isn't that correct? We don't want to impose false diagnosis to our patients. And admit to that, do you think it is still relevant to our current generation to have critical reading skills, or do you still see critical reading skills in our current generation?
For me, I think critical reading skills should still be applied on our generations today, regardless of if it is offline or digital. It is still important for us to practice critical reading in order for us to determine the facts of what is true and what is right, what and yeah. Yes.
Yes, I agree that it is a valuable skill that we should have.
No, what I meant was, do you still observe those? Do you still observe our current generation to have critical reading skills? For example, is Juan de la Cruz still reading critically, or do you think it is something that he or she
April.
should still improve?
So I think in today's generation, there are many informations that are not true, or it's not from a credible person, but many of us in today's generation don't apply critical reading or critical thinking in informations that we
Consume?
Yeah, that you
yeah
encounter.
yeah
As for me,
How about
I
for
also
you, Ed? Yes, for you, TJ.
for me, I still observe others. I still observe others on how they apply critical reading, like in our generation, like in Facebook. There are posts who are promoting. There are Facebook posts that promotes to critically read, or they also teaches us how to critically read, and yeah.
And I think it depends on what students is reading.
Yeah.
Example, when it comes to academic texts, students tend to critically think. But when the student is reading novels or stories, they are
Depends on how we read.
On
You
the
can't
type of
think.
media, the type of, if it's academic, if it's
Fictional.
for entertainment.
It's really depend on how we approach the material. Like, are we reading for pleasure, like for research, to learn something, or to gain knowledge? Something like that.
Yeah, correct.
How about for Edelyn? What are your thoughts? Do you think you still observe critical reading skills from our generation?
Well, for me, it depends on the student whether they are pursuing to learn.
So in summary of what we thought of the current generation critical reading skills, I think that we are in the age of information, but at the same time, we're also in this age of misinformation. So we really have to evaluate where we read or where we get our information. So that concludes our podcast. So TJ Ciriaco,
Yeah,
do
first
you
of
have
all,
any more?
I would like to acknowledge my family who are now in HN right now. Yeah, how about you
We're in
guys?
our fourth episode.
Yeah, for this episode. I hope
Do
everyone.
you have anyone to thank?
What?
Do you have anyone to thank?
I can't understand the.
So this is the fourth episode of
What
What if
if
Fatima had
I
a
had a
podcast?
podcast? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for our guest.
Yeah.